Hey guys, I have a historical fantasy. I'm not quite sure what you would call this. The Enchanted Lies of Celeste Artois by Ryan Graudin. So when I requested this one from the publisher, I was definitely drawn to the cover, and this beautiful cover art here has a cat on it, and it's also set in Paris in 1913 and has some fantasy elements. So the way it was kind of billed to me was that Ryan Graudin has written a few other series for young adults, and this is her first adult, aimed at adult audience book. Honestly, I think that's a bit of a misnomer. It definitely just seemed like young adult fiction to me. If you've read this book or you just sort of want to comment, let me know in the comments what you think maybe defines something as being adult or young adult fiction. I know I have my own idea what that is, or my own understanding of that from working with sort of publishers and stuff like that and whatever. But this one has, very young main characters. Not very young like children. I mean young as in not necessarily full adult age. And it seems like it has a lot of the tropes of what I would consider young adult fiction. So let me know what you think about that, because I think it's just an interesting, I'm sure there's lots of different ways of looking at this. So I didn't love this book. So if you did, don't be offended that I didn't. That can happen sometimes. It's fine. I'm not saying you're bad if you did like it. Here's the thing. This book opens with an introduction that speaks directly to the reader, and that goes for a few pages, and it sort of lets us know that not everyone in life can see magic or see the magic in things, see the beautiful, sort of the beauty in life or whatever. Some people are mundane. Those people are not special. Those unmagical types are not going to like this book. It's not for them. And I didn't think this was a very good introduction for a few reasons. It's too long, it's not well written, and it also made me think of like The Emperor's New Clothes, the old fairy story. If you like this book, it tells us you're not like the others, you're special and magical, which kind of implies if you don't like this book, it's not because the book needed another round of editing or maybe isn't amazing or something like that. It's because you're not special and you didn't get it, and I feel like that's very manipulative. It also made me think of that phrase, you're not like other girls, or that sort of I'm not like other girls, and that sort of bothered me. I feel like that's a very manipulative way to open a book, and I don't think it added anything. It was just sort of, why was that included? So to get to the book itself, the story itself, I should say, the book is set in 1913 Paris, and we have sort of three main characters. They are young girls, young women who call themselves the Enchantresses, and they work as forgers and thieves, and they live off cheese in a graveyard where they are blackmailing the graveyard keeper. So that should give you a little sense of how this book, its outlook or whatever. Celeste had dreams of being an artist, but now works as a forger, and when she meets handsome Rafe, he draws her and the other enchantresses into a world of magic, which is like a hidden sort of layer of the city. However, dark magic is curling at the edges of Paris, and Celeste may not have much time left as she succumbs to consumption. The book has lush sort of magic world building. There's a talking cat. There's this sort of lights of turn of the century Paris. The Romanovs, there's a few elements thrown in. I mean, I said at the top I didn't really love this book. I don't want to be too harsh because, it's hard to write a book. And I don't know, I just feel like, being harsh for the sake of it is not in anyone's interest. But I do think that in the case of me not liking this book, it's not so much a matter of taste, but a matter of this book needing more editing. I'd say more editing would probably cover a lot of this. So after the opening, when we meet Celeste for the first time, she's wandering around in a graveyard and she's sort of feeling bad about being a criminal. but she also feels completely justified in being a criminal and stealing from others. And for me, this meant that her guilt was very performative because it takes place dramatically in a graveyard in Paris at night. And also because it's clear that she doesn't really feel bad. She's kind of reveling in getting one over on the people that she's tricking. She's proud of duping other people. And it makes her, she doesn't explicitly say this, but you can tell that she's like, I'm more clever. It makes her feel powerful. And so she's sort of justified who she steals from. Like, it's okay to steal from these people. And I'm like, it's a slippery slope right there. If it's okay for you to steal from them, how is it bad for them to steal from you? There's no real shame or guilt demonstrated in this scene or any acknowledgement of her actions harming other people. If you're going to make a character morally ambiguous, you also have to make them sympathetic or interesting in some way as well. Maybe they're funny and likable. Or maybe we just kind of know that they're heading for a fall. You know, like a downfall is inevitable because they're a criminal, or, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, this just doesn't really happen in this book. It doesn't really work. You just kind of meet her and you go, oh, okay, she's not that nice. She's, whatever happens to her is probably, you know, a life lesson that she needs to learn. I don't really know. I didn't really care for her. And quite a few of the characters in this book suffer from being a little thinly drawn or just not that interesting. They're just sort of sassy woman number 1 and sassy woman number 2 kind of thing. You know, I think I've read books where the characters are very thinly drawn, but I've really enjoyed the strong writing of the story, the world of the story, or maybe just that they're pleasant. So whilst they're not terribly, you know, iconic characters or whatever, it can be just nice to spend time in a story world or with a sort of in a pleasant space, a little maybe escapism, or it can be very soothing. So the world of the story of this book could do that for us, right? Except that the story world isn't very well written either. This version of Paris is not like Paris. It's like Disney Paris, or like a teenager that went to Paris one time and has a sort of very romantic view of it. And, you know, I think a lot of people have a romantic view of certain cities in the world, places like Paris, and I'm okay with that. I think that can be really nice. I don't actually mind that too much. And I think, in fairness, it's a fantasy novel, so why not make it a fantasy of the city that you're writing about? But I just think it doesn't come together very well. It doesn't work very well. Sometimes it tries to be sort of, I don't know, edgy by mentioning, you know, sort of absinthe and women who can street fight, and it has a sort of French name for their street fighting. And it just sort of misses the mark. It's almost like, I feel like some people don't know how to write strong women. So they just sort of go, you know, she can street fight. And it's not your ability to, you know, do that makes you strong. It's sort of internal characteristics and strength of character that make for strong women. There are strong women written in books throughout history. So it's not like you have to sort of reinvent the wheel here just because you're setting it in the past. I also think the Russian element was maybe unnecessary, and a little maybe misguided, I think, because again, it was it was more like the cartoon Anastasia than, you know, the real life of the Russian royal family or that kind of thing. So, and you already have magic in Paris. Like, I don't think you have to add more to that. Yeah, I think the hardest part of this book for me was the author's writing style. She's trying I feel really mean saying this. She's trying very hard to be clever. There's a phrase early on in the book that I thought I would use as an example because it's not it's not going to spoil the book for you or anything. But early on, a cheese knife is described as being dull enough to make camembert taste sharp. And I get that may sound kind of clever, but it doesn't mean anything and it doesn't make sense. It's just flowery language put there. We know knives don't change the taste of cheese. I'm not sure why young women who live in a graveyard would have a cheese knife. You can use any knife to cut cheese. It seems a little odd that they have sort of the kind of cutlery that you would have for, you know, sitting down at a table or like, but you know, if you have a cheese knife, you might use it. So I guess that doesn't really matter. But I wouldn't associate sharpness with camembert. So I was just kind of sitting there reading it going, why would knives don't change the taste of cheese. This sentence means nothing. It adds nothing to the story. Why would you want it to change the taste of the cheese? Like, and obviously it doesn't. I mean, it just, the dullness of the knife isn't relevant to the story. I mean, it's just a sentence that is there because somebody thought it sounded cool. And I mean, it's nonsense, basically. So there's a lot of this sort of added frilly language in this book, and it gets really annoying because it means everything is overly described. It feels very self-indulgent, honestly. And there's not enough plot in this book. So you're kind of wading through all of this sort of excess, frilly, frothy, sort of pointless stuff. And it really could have been edited down and sharpened up. You can have much tighter writing. If any of you have read something like, you know, Raymond Chandler or something like that, writing can be very tight and very well paced and still have really good little one-liners in there that are very funny or very clever. I mean, it just gets annoying and the book is too long. And I just feel like that somebody should have really gone in and just pruned out a lot of dead wood and just tightened this up a lot. And then I think it would have worked better. I do think cutting out sentences that, I don't think things have to be short. I quite like a long book when it's good. And I think when you're reading a book that's very long, when it is really good and you're turning those pages, you don't actually notice that it's long. So whenever I'm kind of like, this book could have been shorter, it's not because I want all books to be short. I don't. If it's a book that I'm enjoying, I'm very sad when it finishes too soon. But you need to have a reason for those pages and those words, and you need to be enjoying the story world. And yeah, I just think this book really needed a lot more editing. I wanted to like this book. I think that sort of premise or the idea of it is good. And yeah, I mean, I think if you loved this book, please don't think I'm judging you in any way. Just because I don't think the quality was there. You know, we all have books where we're like, you know, we like it even though it's not the best. And I think that's a good thing. So if you like this book, that's great. If you did like it and you don't agree with something I said, please feel free to talk to me about it in the comments, because I'm always open to that kind of thing. You know, like sometimes people see things and I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that perspective, you know? So, you know, it's all good. But yeah, I do think if you're thinking about reading this book, it is sort of described as being aimed at adult readers, as being this author's first book aimed at adult readers. I think it's young adult fiction. I think it will appeal more to young adult fiction fans. And yeah, I think if that kind of thing is going to bother you, then skip it. If you love young adult fiction, I think maybe this one could be more for you. So that's my take on that one. Yeah, thank you to Hachette Book Group Canada for the copy of this one for review. And yeah, come and chat to me in the comments if you have any thoughts, you want to add anything. Yeah, speaking of the Romanovs and Anastasia, they discovered what happened to Anastasia. If you guys, if you're into the kind of things like that, there used to be this mystery of, did Anastasia survive? Yeah, so that might be one to Google if you didn't know about them solving that mystery. Otherwise, I will see you soon with another book to share with you, either from my collection or that has been sent to me to review and share. And thank you for joining me and for hanging out. And I hope you're having a really good week when you watch this.